Hey guys, so I know some of you haven't been watching the group stages of the World Championship, so I thought I'd give you a quick rundown of the teams and so on, and who they're matching up against during the quarterfinals, explain strengths and weaknesses, where we expect the matchup to go, and what will be exciting to keep an eye on. I will say I really would recommend watching the group stages. I think it's the best group stages we've ever had. There were some incredible matchups, some incredible games. It was just really exciting and really interesting. If you're not sure what you want to watch and you have a limited amount of time, let me know. I'm happy to recommend some games. But it was really, I think it was a great group stage, and it's definitely worth watching if you have some time. I'm just going to go through each matchup, talk about each team, how I expect them to match up, what people are saying, and it just gives you a bit of background. I think it makes it a bit more exciting. So first matchup we have, this is actually not going to be in like viewing order, but like from left to right on the bracket stage. So first one on the left hand side is ROX Tigers against EDG. So ROX Tigers is the #1 seed from Korea, EDG is the #1 seed from China. I'll start by talking about EDG. They went through an undefeated run in China, looked incredible. People were kind of putting them at the second or third favorite team in the whole tournament to take the tournament. They have a jungler called Clearlove, who is considered the best jungler at Worlds, and actually has been voted the best jungler at Worlds for the last 2 World Championships. That being said, they have not looked great. During the group stages, they actually came second to H2K. They just weren't looking very strong. Their top laner Mouse was actually a real weak point. Unfortunately, he's had a family member die, so he's had to go back to to China, and they've brought in someone else, Coro1, who hasn't seen pro play all year, so it's actually even more of a downgrade. Because of this, the team actually has Deft and Mako in the bot lane, which are probably the best bot lane in the world at the moment. And they just don't look that great, and unfortunately without Mouse, who is already a liability down to Coro1, people are really looking at ROX Tigers to take this. ROX is the #1 team in Korea. They've been very dominant, but haven't won until the last split. They have 4 players in the top 10 at Worlds. They have the best player in the world currently in Smeb at the top lane. Really great team, very exciting. They team fight impeccably. Like their group stages wasn't amazing. It was good, but it wasn't incredible. And it really depended on their jungler, Peanut. So when he was firing on all cylinders and really playing his A grade, then the team dominated. When he wasn't, they actually were behind, but from behind, they're so good at team fighting, they're still a real threat. There were a couple of fights where basically their top laner, they just played it perfectly, and they managed to turn a game which they should have lost into a win. Smeb just played, like, he was very patient and he saw the right opportunity and played it perfectly, but he hasn't as well been as dominant as expected. So whilst ROX have done well and they got first place in their group, they haven't been performing as well as people expected. That being said, they were laughing and having a lot of fun, so it is possible that they weren't taking it super serious and they were just enjoying the whole process. Remains to be seen. People are expecting ROX to win this game pretty convincingly. But it will be exciting, despite maybe the issues that ADG are going through, to see how ROX performs. Because are they going to continue performing like they did in group stages, or are they going to perform like they were in Korea, which was just on another level? Because if they make it through to semi-finals, they face off against the winner of either SKT or RNG, Royal Never Give Up, which I'm going to discuss next. And that's going to be a really exciting matchup. So SKT against Royal Never Give Up. SKT came first in their group. Royal Never Give Up came second in their group. SKT had been slumping. They started the year incredibly dominant. They went to MSI. They won that. They're obviously the last year's world champions. Great team. They've been struggling though in summer, and they didn't perform very well. And they didn't actually even make it to the finals of the playoffs. They qualified via points anyway, and they turned up at Worlds. People weren't sure what to expect because of their previous performance, but in the group stages they played so clean and so well. Especially when they put Bengi, their old jungler, in. They have another younger, more mechanically gifted jungler in Blank, but he just doesn't work well with the team. He makes such a small mistakes, which is odd, and the team just doesn't play anywhere near as well as with Bengi. That being said, Blank played really well in week 2 of group stages, so if that continues on, you know, it will be good. SKT, because of their strong performance in the group stage, are now being considered potentially the favourites to win the whole tournament, especially since Rox didn't look as dominant. However, their group wasn't very strong. It was actually quite weak, so they weren't really challenged. So it remains to be seen how they deal with RNG and potentially further on Rox Tigers. RNG came second in their group. Their group was probably the hardest to call and the toughest because you had TSM, Samsung, and Royal Never Give Up, and Splice. Splice didn't win any games, so it's just kind of, we're not going to, or they won one game, but we're not going to really discuss them, so forget about them. The other 3 in week 1, it was rock, paper situation. TSM beat Samsung, Samsung beat Royal Never Give Up, Royal Never Give Up beat TSM. It was really anyone's game. In week 2, however, Samsung pulled ahead, Royal Never Give Up came out second. They actually tied with TSM, but because they beat TSM twice in their head-to-head, they didn't have a tiebreaker. Unfortunate for TSM, but if they want to win, they need to play better. So Royal, on paper, incredible team. They have 2 previous world champions in Lupa and Mata. They have Uzi, who has reached the World Championship final so many times, and even during the regular season, he's a bit shaky. At Worlds, he gets like a buff and plays incredibly. On paper, this team should be one of the very best, but they have real chemistry issues. They managed to get the 2nd seed in China basically because of raw talent, not because they're playing very well together. They just beat everyone because they're better players. But when they matched up against EDG, who are players who are as good, better, or maybe a little bit weaker, but that plays together, they got destroyed by EDG. So it was a real uncertainty of how they were going to do in the group stages. They seem to have pulled it together and are actually playing quite well, but they're very dependent on their bot lane, on Uzi and Mata. They aim to get them ahead. They're very good early game wise. If they get them ahead, then they take the game. There's a real chance that SKT is able to counter this. SKT just plays so well, there's a chance they won't be able to get to that early game advantage, which they then snowball because off of Uzi and Mata playing so perfectly. So, but that's an exciting matchup because it's going to be SKT challenged for the first time, and we get to see, are they as good as they actually looked, or is RNG even going to not show up because there's a real potential that they might not, or are they going to show up to their full potential, and then what type of games are we going to get? So it's a bit of a wildcard matchup, that one. And as I said, that whoever wins SKT RNG goes up to face off who everyone is predicting to be Rox Tigers. So that's going to be an incredible match because really SKT and Rox Tigers are currently the 2 teams that people consider the favourites to win the whole tournament. So semi-finals is going to be very exciting. Then we move on to 3rd matchup, and that is going to be ANX, Albus Nox Luna, and H2K. Albus Nox Luna is a wildcard region team. They come from Russia, the CIS region, because they split off from EU West, and they've gotten out of group stages. It's insane. They have some of the best games. They've created the biggest upsets. They're awesome. They came out of nowhere. People weren't even screaming them as practice partners before group stages. They were playing World of Warcraft. But they came in and did incredibly well. They played smart, but in a kind of tricky way. They grabbed Baron at times that people didn't expect it to, didn't think it should be done, but it actually was visionless and they could do it fast enough, and they just took it. It was a little bit cheesy, so we'd say. But commentators and analysts were saying, look, that's great. They saw opportunities, they snatched them, but other teams aren't going to give them those opportunities anymore. But then they managed to do it in the second game. And then people were like, no, look, they figured out their play style. they're not going to, for week 2, it's going to be shut down. And it's true that they didn't need to do those cheeses because Albus Nox just went straight traditional League of Legends. They just played normal League. And they played it very well. Like, they are a solid team. And previously, before this World Championship, the best a wildcard has ever done is get 2 wins. Albus Nox is now qualified for quarterfinals, which is insane. So anyway, so they managed to get out. They won just traditionally, and then they actually, G2 gave them their favorite picks, and they have a favorite pick in their mid laner loves Anivia, top laner gets Poppy, and there's a nice combination with Poppy and Anivia where Poppy rams people into Anivia's wall. It's just a little fun mechanic, but you don't normally see it, and it's quite tough to pull off. But more importantly than that, they take brand support. It's insane what they did with it. It's a real high skill team comp. It's very difficult to execute. You can't really fall behind. You have to really know how to push and play. And they pulled it off. And they pulled it off so well. They're super legit. This is not a wildcard team that fluked it. This is a wildcard team that fully deserves to be in the quarterfinals. They're good, they're solid, and they're capable. They're facing off against H2K. So really, this just in itself is insane. So either we're getting H2K getting to semi-finals, which means that EU is making top 4 again for the second time, two years in a running, or we're getting a wildcard team making it to semi-finals, which is just insane. H2K, if you read my notes from the pre-world group stages, they're an incredible team. They have some of the strongest laners. They really are. They can do so well, but they're their biggest enemies. They just don't show up sometimes. In week 1, they didn't really show up. They were a mess. In week 2, however, they showed up big time. 4-0, perfect week. They played so well. Ryu was so dominant. Forgiven is always showing up in lane with Vander. They're just an incredible team when they're playing at their, potential. But that's the big question. Will they play at their potential against Albus Nox? A lot of people are saying, yes, H2K will win this matchup. They might be challenged by Albus, but ultimately they're veterans. They, have the coaches and infrastructure, and they are just really top tier players. And people, if they've showed up in group stages, people expect them to continue to show up. I think we are saying that H2K will win. Nothing against Albus Nox. I think Albus Nox is great, but H2K is just incredible in their individual talent, and they're playing very well together. So, and I think they just have the history and the experience to be able to pull it out over a course of a best of 5 series. Finally, last matchup is Samsung Galaxy against Cloud9. I'm going to start with Cloud9. They didn't look great. Their group stages was sloppy with some really terrible games. Meteos was really not playing very well. Jensen was doing okay, but not as well as he was expected to do, and I don't think he was playing as well as he should have. Smoothly has stepped up hugely. He's played really well. For a rookie, how he's come in, I think has performed admirably. Sneaky as well, very consistent, but I feel like Sneaky is always consistent. Not that that isn't to be praised, but Sneaky has shown up, and with Smoothly, they're doing very well. Impact as well has been playing very well, not as dominantly as the playoff run, but he is playing against better people, so remains to be seen how it continues on. Cloud9 is unfortunately looking more like Cloud9 from the regular season rather than Cloud9 from playoffs and Gauntlet, because Cloud9 playoffs and Gauntlet were playing great, and that's who I expected to show up when I did my pre-groups predictions, but they haven't really, unfortunately. And I just don't see them doing better. So, especially when they're faced against Samsung Galaxy. Now, Samsung Galaxy was a top 4 team consistently in Korea. They got the 3rd seed for Worlds. They've come in. People weren't sure again because they were in that group with Royal Never Give Up and TSM. And they performed really well. They're just very solid. I think the meta suits them. They have ambition in the jungle. He is good, not great, but he is good, and the meta is suiting him, so he's actually becoming even better. They have a mid laner called Crown, who is considered the most mechanically gifted player in the world, and he's playing like it. He's really delivering. I think the team just overall is just, it's very solid. You really can't fault them. I don't think they had, their bot lane is maybe a little bit weaker. ADC isn't the most experienced, and they have two subs, two supports. They have Wraith, who is an experienced support, and the team plays better around objectives with him. But they actually play worse. It's a weird thing where they have better objective control, and when they go for an objective, they're very good at, they know where to go, but their overall play just isn't as good, and it's a bit messy. They've got Core JJ though, who's just moved to support position, but when the team plays with him, they play really well together. So it's an odd thing where when they're technically picking the better player, the team plays worse and they lose. When they pick the worst player, or the newer, more inexperienced player in that role, they play better. And that's actually what happened in their playoff run and their gauntlet run. They picked Core JJ. So it remains to be seen who they pick to play in the best of 5, and it'll be interesting to see how they play. But really, overall, they're a very solid team, and I think they're a real threat. They're potentially a real dark horse, because originally people were predicting, you know, Rock's Tigers #1. You can never discount SKT, so maybe that they're the second favorite, but people have been like, maybe it's EDG. And then people were looking, you know, at like TSM, they were looking at Royal Never Give Up, and then Samsung kind of was in that discussion. So in the top 6, maybe breaking into top 5, but not sure. But the way they played through the group stages, they've really jumped up, and I think a lot of people are considering them a top 3 team. So in their matchup against Cloud9, everyone's expecting Samsung Galaxy to win. That was on Samsung against H2K or Albus Nox. Now, Samsung against H2K, if H2K are playing at their very best, like week 2 where they went 4-0, I think it could be a really close matchup. Because their mid lanes, Ryu has been playing incredible. And Crown is very mechanically gifted, but he isn't necessarily, he's not like Faker who will push a lead like that. So they're a good matchup. They're quite evenly matched up, and it'll be interesting to see. In top lane, Kuve and Odoamne, again, it's very hard to predict. In the jungle, I think Yankos is more aggressive and creates more advantages, whereas Ambition is more stable and he ensures like they steadily get more advantages. So it's just a different playstyle. I think the big difference is in bot lane, because Forgiven and Vander are possibly the best Western bot lane, especially with Forgiven, how great he is as an ADC. Matching up against Ruler and Wraith or Core JJ, that is where HGK has a real potential to grab a huge advantage and steamroll it. So that's going to be super exciting. I think semi-finals are going to be incredible. I'm not so sure how finals will be actually, but that remains to be seen. And I guess we'll get there when we get there. But for now, really excited about quarterfinals. I recommend you guys watch it. I think today it starts with Cloud9 versus Samsung Galaxy. It's going over the next 4 days, the best of 5s. And I think we're just going to see some great League of Legends. So I hope this overview kind of have given you a bit of backstory, who you should root for, who's doing well and why. And yeah, we'll see how things go. If you have any questions, let me know, guys. See ya.